How do you get their attention? Can I have your attention, please? Now I know how you feel when somebody wants.
You have to have respect.
We came here tonight, and everybody in this crowd thinks I don't have any friends. Well, I got news for you. I got one friend. He's here tonight. He's worked with the Herald Standard for 7.5 years. Then he left and went to the Greensburg Tribune for 9 years as a sports reporter. Came back to where he was his first love, the Herald Standard. He's been there for 13 years as a sports editor. He's been traveling with the Steelers exclusively for the last 13 years. More than that. He knows my other friend, Cordell Stewart. So without further delay, the Herald Standard sports editor, Mike Schroeder.
Thanks, Chuck, for the kind words, and I want to thank all of you for having me here to speak with you this evening. Again, my name is Mike Schroeder. I'm the sports editor of the Herald Standard newspaper in Uniontown. It's a small part of my job, but people say I got the best job in the world. I get to travel everywhere the Pittsburgh Steelers go to play a football game. I get to go with them and watch the game and write stories about it for the newspaper. I started doing that, Jack, to bring you up to speed on this in 1980. And you guys who know your Steeler history know 1980 was the year right after they won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. So until this past season, I thought maybe I was the jinx on them or something. I've been with them all these years, and they didn't. They only made it back to one other Super Bowl, and then this year they finally made me feel better about going through and completing the deal and winning the whole thing. So as I said, covering the Steelers is part of my job. The Herald Standard is a relatively small newspaper. We have our niche. We have about 30,000 circulation daily and Sunday. We're now 7 days a week, and the biggest part of my job is not covering the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's the most fun part of my job. The most important part of my job is covering high school athletics. High school athletics. That's our bread and butter. That's what sells our paper. A lot of you probably have kids. Some of you see some of the younger guys here probably play high school sports. That's where we make a living. That's why they pay me. To go out and see the high school kids play, report on their games. And that's pretty much at least 9 months of the year, when we go from football, soccer, golf, cross country in the fall, and I'm sure I'll visit some sports there. Then we go into the winter sports where you have basketball and swimming and wrestling. And then after the winter sports are over, we go into spring sports, which is what we're in now, between track and field, and baseball and softball. That keeps us pretty busy a good bit at a time. And in the summer, we have Legion Baseball and County League Baseball to keep us occupied until about the end of July, Jack, and then I disappear, right? And that's when training camp starts, the Steelers go into camp. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about a little bit today, just to give you an idea of what it is, what I do when I'm with the Steelers. When they go to training camp, they come in, as you know, with probably 80-some players, between 80 and 90. They go through the rigors of camp in Latrobe, right down the road from here, and they make their cuts and they determine who's on the team and all that. And we go up there, we report pretty much daily. Myself, reporters from other papers, and none of this would be possible without the gracious generosity of Mr. Dan Rooney, the owner of the team, and the Rooney family have really made it possible for our newspaper and a lot of the other suburban newspapers to feel like a part of the Steeler family. They take us with them once the regular season starts. They take us with them on the team plane. So whenever, Saturday afternoon, I report to the airport right with all the players, get on the same airplane with them. We fly from this city, Pittsburgh, to whichever city they're staying in and playing in the next day. They put us up in their hotels Saturday night, the night before the game. They take us on buses to the game. They take us on buses after, we get access to the locker room. straight to the airport, we fly home. Of course, they're usually relaxing and recreating on the flight home. Well, I'm in the back with a little laptop computer, typing like there's no tomorrow, trying to get my stories done. And then whenever we landed back in Pittsburgh, I go immediately right into the airport, and I filed my story over a telephone line up in our computer in the office in Uniontown, and it would then be in the next day's paper. You know, it's really been a whirlwind, I guess 20-some years for me now, because you know, when I first started out doing this, I was at the Herald Standard, as Jack mentioned before. I left for the Tribune, and I was doing mostly just high school things and this and that. I started off as a news reporter, and this one summer, it was the summer of 1980, as I mentioned, after the last Super Bowl. I was working in news, and I just decided on a whim, what the heck, maybe I'll drive down to Latrobe and take a look at training camp a little bit just to see what's going on. And I saw a buddy of mine down there who was a reporter from another paper, and he said, well, why don't you come on down and do a couple stories? So I went down and I talked to the public relations guy from the Steelers, and he said, yeah, come on in. They gave me a media pass and got me down there. And I walked in and he said, well, which of our players, who do you want to interview? And I was like that little kid in the candy store. I was looking around and said, wow, I want to talk to all of them, you know. There's Frank Harris over here, there's Terry Bradshaw, there's Joe Green. So the first couple of interviews I did were with Frank Harris, and the second one was with Jack Lambert. And I'll never forget that as long as I live. Those were the first two guys I could think of that I wanted to talk to. And so it started there, and then I came back and I wrote a couple stories, and then I worked the night shift. I worked an afternoon shift at the time. So I said, man, this is really kind of fun. I figured I might go back and try that again. So I kind of made that a habit. About every day that training camp, during the week, I would get up in the morning, drive down to Latrobe, get a couple interviews, have lunch, drive back to Uniontown, get on the computer while I'm working at night, write a couple sports stories, and then do whatever I had to do for my news job. So at the end of that summer, the Herald Standard first premiered our Sunday edition. It was 1980, and with the Sunday paper, you need a bigger staff. So the Herald Standard decided they were going to hire a new person in sports, and the sports editor at the time, his name was Todd Trent. He said, well, heck, I want to bring the guy over here who's been driving to Latrobe every day. He's getting the ins with the Steelers now, so I want to have him write sports. And they hired me in the sports department at that time. And ever since then, I've been a sports writer. So, you know, through the years, it was always fun to cover the Steelers. They didn't always win every game, you know, and they didn't always play their best. And that's one of the things I really have to commend the Rooney family for. They take me with them, as I said, everywhere they go. I've been with them not only to road games during the regular season, but whenever they go over to Europe, I've been to Japan with them. I've been to Barcelona, Spain. I've been to Dublin, Ireland. You know, those are just some of the perks that you know, it's kind of like you got to pinch yourself in the morning sometimes just to realize that this is happening to you and for you. But through all that, they take me everywhere. They put me up in the good hotels that they stay in. And through all that, if the Steelers play a terrible game, Dan Rooney doesn't expect me to sugarcoat it. He doesn't expect me to say, oh, that's okay, they'll do better next time. He wants me to tell it like it is, as Howard Cosell used to say. Got to tell it like it is. The Steelers played a terrible game, I got to say that in paper. You know, I'll get more flack from Dan Rooney for not saying that than I would for saying it. He allows us to do our job. You know, and that's one of the things I'll always respect about the Rooney family. Dan Rooney got it, honestly, from his father, Art Rooney, the chief. He always had a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. When I walked in the first time to there and I saw, you know, the chief, Art Rooney, sitting there, it was like it was like the first day of training camp, and I'm looking around at all these star players, future Hall of Famers. When I saw Art Rooney, I just wanted to sit and spend the whole day with him. You know, he had all the time in the world for me. Started asking me about people from Uniontown that he knew, and people I know. Treated me like one of the family, one of the Rooney family. And you know, he was a dear old gentleman. He is missed, but you know, the legacy goes on. Dan Rooney is just like his dad, and Art Rooney II like his dad. I mean, they run a first-class operation from top to bottom, and in my opinion, and of course I'm a little bit biased because I've been going with them for a number of years, but they're the best pro sports organization there is that you'll find, at least in this country. I've never run across any that are better. I did want to concentrate a little bit more on this season, since it was such a magical run that this team had this year. You know, when the season started, and y'all remember last year how disappointed we all were when they lost another AFC championship game at home. You're wondering if they're ever going to get over the hump and this and that. And there was talk about, well, maybe Cowher shouldn't be the coach anymore and this and that because he can't win the big one, can't get into the big game and this and that. Dan Rooney wanted to hear none of that. That's why they extended his contract last year. They said he was the longest tenured coach who had never won a Super Bowl. He was at 13 years, I believe, and the previous record holder to that, with dubious honor that it was Tom Landry from the Cowboys. He had gone 12 years before he won his first Super Bowl with the Cowboys, and Bill Cowher was right there at 13. When they came into the year, there still wasn't, I mean, there was a lot of hope. A lot of people thought, well, maybe this is the year we can do it, you know, after the kind of magical rookie season that Ben Roethlisberger had. You know, maybe this is the year, maybe they can get over the hump. And then they hit some rough times. You know, they didn't come out of the gate strong. They won the first couple of games, I think, but then they got down to the point where they needed not only to win that week to make the playoffs, but they were in real jeopardy of not even making the playoffs. And over the last 6 games of the season, I believe it was 6 games they won the last regular season. 6 straight games they had the regular season. One little stumble, one little, you know, missed first down here, one completed pass that's dropped, or one bad call from the refs. They're not even in the playoffs. It kind of tells you how Bill Cowher always has one of his famous lines. There's a fine line between winning and losing in this business. And really, they tightrope on that line last year a whole lot. You know, it was really that close. Any bounce that goes the wrong way, they're sitting home watching the playoffs on TV. But, you know, they persevered. They came in as probably the hottest number 6 seed anyone has ever seen. And they really got on a roll at the right time. And after they won the Super Bowl, I'm kind of going forward or backward with this story, but when they won the Super Bowl, I was kind of touched by probably the first or second thing out of Bill Cowher's mouth. He's on the podium accepting the trophy. First thing he said, "Here, Dan, this is for you." Because he said he promised Dan Rooney this trophy all those years. The next thing he said kind of gets to really the core, I think, of competition and of teamwork. And a lot of the principles I think that you guys in the Dart Ball League embody too. And it is all about teamwork. It's not about me, it's about us. And, you know, Bill Cowher immediately said, you know, I'm humbled by this. The pure emotion of winning this game, and I'm not quoting him verbatim, I'm just kind of giving you the feel of what he said. You know, I'm proud to accept this trophy, and handed it to Mr. Rooney. He said, but it's not about me. He said, it's about all these assistant coaches who were here all through the summer and all through the season. When things weren't looking so good, it was the coaches who kept us together. His staff, like he put the staff together. Remember that, Jack, you surround yourself with a lot of good people, right? You know, and then he thanked the players. You know, the players were the ones who won the championship. It wasn't him, it was them. He guided them. He showed them how to get done what they wanted to get done. But it was the players who did it. And I thought that was a real nice touch for a guy who, you know, when he first came here, remember, he didn't have a whole lot of fans. He was, a lot of people thought he's just a brash guy, he's too flashy, too showy. He learned over the years too, what it's all about and what it takes to win big games and what it takes to build a championship team. And so, you know, here they were though, they're coming out of the regular season. They had to win their last game against Detroit at home. And they pulled that off and they got into the playoffs and immediately it started. You know, people were saying, well, you know, they thought that the first game was going to be in Indianapolis. But as it turned out, my memory's not helping me. Who they played the first round of the playoffs?
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, oh, that's right. And now, just I'll fast forward and then backtrack again. That's what they were saying the other day. Bill Cowher was asked about being a defending Super Bowl champ. He says, it'll be easy to bring him back to earth. He said, I'll just tell them we didn't even win our division last year. You guys think you're good or something? They ended up losing the division to Cincinnati. Came back, went into Cincinnati, beat them out there. And then from there, they went on to Denver.
No.
And I got a little story to tell you about I take it back, they went to Indianapolis. And back to the regular season game, I was telling Jack Duggar about this over dinner. When I'm with them covering games, Monday night game, I love sitting around watching Monday Night Football. You get to lay in bed or lay on the couch or wherever you're with your clicker, and as soon as the game's over, you feel like that. Not off for sleep, get up and go to work the next day. When the Steelers play a Monday Night Football game, I hate it. I gotta tell you, it's the hardest part of my job that there is. Because if you stay up to watch the end of Monday Night Football, it ends about midnight, quarter after 12, sometimes 12:30. Our paper the presses start running at 1 in the morning. They need my story, they need the last page out of the newsroom half an hour before the press runs. So that's 12:30. I have to write the story, try to make sense out of something that's happening as I'm writing. So anyway, that Monday night game in Indianapolis, win or lose, I had to have the story done by, say, midnight, quarter till midnight, something like that. I got an idea. I said, if they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, if they're going to make it, they're going to have to come back here and win again. So I based my whole story on the fact that, they have to learn from this. Whether they win the game or not, they have to learn. They have to learn. You have to keep a guy on Marvin Harrison on 1st and 10 and 20. You can't let him run behind it, and it makes it an easy touchdown. You learn from that. You learn from a lot of other things. You learn how to stop that offense. You learn how to possess the ball. You're in that environment. You learn how to deal with the noise, which they handle tremendously well in the playoffs. That was my story from Monday night, and of course, not because of me, certainly not because of me, it all kind of came true in the playoff game against the Colts in Indy. They just went in, a much more confident team. They had a plan, they knew what they wanted to do, and they achieved it. Despite Jerome Bettis' fumble at the end, which was really kind of a hard, that was a scary moment that didn't need to be, but I think Jerome Bettis is probably still headed for the Hall of Fame. And from there, they went on to Denver for the AFC Championship game. It was on the road, first time Bill Cowher had ever coached, second time maybe, he coached an AFC Championship game on the road. There were a couple of premonitions that happened. I noticed them right before the game, and I didn't say anything until after the game. When the game was over, we're getting on the bus, everyone's all happy and cheery, and I'm just trying to start writing the story. On the bus, going to the airport, the same guy sat behind me that sat behind me on the way to the game, and that was Jerome Bettis. He's sitting maybe a seat, maybe 2 seats behind me. And of course, going to the game, they're all somber, they got their headphones on with the music playing, and they're kind of getting their game faces on and all that. And of course, after you win the AFC Championship game, they're pretty jovial, everyone's high-fiving here and there talking. So they kind of calmed down a little bit, and Jerome, like I said, is a few seats behind me. And I turned around and I said, hey Jerome, I said, did you notice anything on the bus ride over there from the hotel to the game today? And he said, what do you mean? Did I notice anything? I said, did you notice the route number we took when we left the hotel? He said, no, I didn't. I said, it was Route 36. He said, oh, no kidding. I said, did you happen to look up? No, this was one of those new touring buses we were on. And in the front, it had a digital readout with the time and the temperature. I said, you didn't happen to notice what the temperature was when we left the hotel this morning, did you? He said, was it 36? And I said, yeah. And he said, it was meant to be. And it's the first time I ever told that story, but Jerome, he was a special guy, and he had that big smile that would light up a room, and he still does. He's going to be lighting up a lot of TV rooms, I guess, in the fall. I think he's going to be working for NBC. You know, then it was on to Detroit, and really the story was Jerome Bettis. I mean, he didn't score the touchdowns, he didn't have the most rushing yards, he didn't lead the team probably in anything except maybe fan support. You know, with his home, you know, being in his hometown and all. But that again, to me, brings out the whole emphasis of team play. There they were, you know, they all wanted, the team rallied around this guy who they knew was more than likely playing his last game. Got to play it in his hometown on the biggest stage there ever was in his chosen profession. And they pulled together as a team, and they wanted for him. They wanted for themselves. I mean, these are paid professional athletes, and they wanted the glory too. But they were so happy to just see the smile on his face and to put that last smile on his face for him. You know, and I think the best example of it is a guy who only got to see spot duty in the Super Bowl, had been deactivated for many games during the regular season. That's number 22, Deuce Staley. You know, the guy really sucked it up, and he came in here, a lot of people thought he had an attitude problem, and he complained about not getting the ball enough in Philadelphia and this and that. But, you know, toward the end of the season, he became a big team player. And I think Jerome Bettis probably had a little bit to do with that. Maybe he set him a little bit straight, put him on the straight and narrow. But now they're talking about Deuce Staley being the guy that comes in now and fills in for Jerome. Whether it works or not, time will only tell. But it was really a magical week up in Detroit. We got to go up there the whole week ahead of the game with the team and stayed in a hotel right near their hotel. It's the second time I got to cover a Super Bowl. Now the outcome was a little bit better this time than it was 10 years ago, though. And it's, you know, it's really something. It lets you know it was a very challenging week because, you know, you don't think of writing stories for a newspaper as being a very pressurized job. But when you think of the stage, you think about what this game is, and how many people are out there reading what you're writing, more so perhaps than anything else you've written for a whole year, maybe 2 years, maybe 10 years. It makes you think a little bit more before you start typing, you know, and you want to make it perfect. And I tell some people who ask me now, what was it like going to the Super Bowl? You know, it was challenging, and then once it's over, it's rewarding. You know, you kind of get to sit back and look at what you've accomplished, or, you know, what you were able to get done. And it was very rewarding. I don't like to necessarily get chummy with the players, if you know what I mean. Because I'm there as a professional, they're there as professionals, and it's part of my profession to talk to them about their profession. It is really what it is. But you do get to know some of these guys, and you know, it's kind of a nice chummy type thing, and you have to keep it professional and keep your distance a certain times from them. But you know, I already mentioned Jerome Bettis as being really a truly great guy, and he would do anything for you to help you. And, you know, a lot of the other players are the same way. You know, Justin Strelzik, who died tragically a little over a year ago, he and I developed a bit of a friendship when he was playing. We were buddies. Not necessarily, not going out with the boys type of buddies, but when I walked into the locker room, he'd say, "Hi, Mike, how you doing?" I'd say, "You know, how's it going, Justin? You know, how's everything going?" And that goes way back to when he first came to the Steelers. I worked on a story on him, and he ended up making the team as a long shot. He was a 11th or 12th round draft choice who had played defense in college and came in here trying to make it as an offensive lineman. So I took the time to do a story on him at that point in his career when he didn't know whether he'd be looking into his life's work, as Chuck Noll used to say, or if he'd be playing for the Steelers. It worked out for him, and you know, we ended up having a good friendship because of that. But you know, it's a fun part of the job, as I mentioned earlier. It's not the only part of my job. It is a truly rewarding experience being able to cover the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't want to bore you all night long tonight, but I did want to save some time here at the end to open up to any questions that any of you might have about the newspaper business, the Pittsburgh Steelers, anyone want to know anything about the draft picks. I brought a little cheat sheet with me today. I don't think I have all the names. I don't have them all committed to everyone gets so excited and it's so exhilarating, especially coming off the Super Bowl win. Boy, it's a long, boring day sitting around. It started at noon, and they didn't make their pick until about 5 o'clock, I'm going to say 4:30, 5 o'clock. And that was after they traded up. It could have been another hour sitting there waiting. But I think they did a good job in the draft. Of course, you never know until they get them on the field and get the pads on and start hitting and running and catching and throwing and all that for real. But I do know that Santonio Holmes, their first round pick out of Ohio State, was at the top of just about everyone's draft board among wide receivers. They said it was a thin crop of wide receivers, there aren't many of them there, but this guy could be special. And the Steelers showed how special they think he can be by trading up to get him. They give up a good bit. They give up a third and a fourth round pick to move up. What was it, 5, 6 spots? 7 spots. From 32 up to 25. So they liked him, and they were able to trade out of the second into the third round and got a couple picks. But I think that overall they did pretty good. A lot of people were a little puzzled by the fact they didn't take a linebacker. Probably the first time, maybe the first time in Bill Cowher's tenure that they didn't draft a linebacker. So, but that's pretty much where they are right now. They got these draft choices, getting ready to go to a mini camp, and then it'll be off the training camp. Back to my roots a little bit from when I first started covering the team here at Herald Standard. Anyone with any questions or any comments about the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Was Roethlisberger's personality as he's depicted pretty much, or is that just an image or an easy?
And I don't know what's your perception of him?
I don't know, what's he like?
He's a pretty good kid. He's a young kid. He's in his coming into his third season. You know, at times he does get a little, I guess, put off by the media and all that. But you know, this is a kid who came from a small school. He's from Miami of Ohio. It's one of the famous MAC schools. He wasn't used to this kind of media attention, where guys are at your locker every day wanting to know, how did this play work? How did that play? That's from a practice, so it was a lot of pressure to put on the kid at a very young age. Now, he was a rookie in his third game, and he was a starter in the NFL. How do you prepare for that? He's different. I'm not saying he's, maybe Terry Bradshaw would have handled it better. Maybe Joe Montana would have handled it better. Best I can tell you is he handles it like that. He has his moments where he can be difficult to deal with. And he, through the PR department of the Steelers, they've kind of helped him manage his time better so that he doesn't have to answer the same question 15 or 20 or 30 times. They have it set up where there's a lot of press conferences where everybody gets one shot at talking to him. Now, a lot of reporters don't like that kind of stuff because they want the scoop. I mean, everyone in my business wants the scoop. I want him to tell me something that he's not going to tell anybody else, right? Because then it's my story and it's nobody else's, and I'm the only one who has it. But with a guy who is as in demand as Ben Roethlisberger is, it's pretty few and far between. You're probably better off, or I'm probably better off getting my scoops from, the 33rd or 44th or 55th guy on the roster, 53rd guy on the roster. One of the backup quarterbacks are saying, hey, how did this play work or something? That's where you get a lot more of your scoop type information. But, he's handling the situation. He's getting better with time. And I think, he sure is building a pretty nice resume, isn't he? AFC championship game in his rookie season and a Super Bowl title in the second. That's not bad. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, as soon as guys go, I think about us taking all the good players.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
Yeah.
what I like to hear.
Yeah. Well, they got another MAC quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hear you. It's Omar Jacobs. 6'4", 224, and they say he throws, as good or a better ball than Ben does. But they drafted him really to be the third string quarterback, and they'll be happy if he does that. If he can accomplish that this year, come in and show enough in training camp that they'll keep him on the roster, but, that's something, isn't it? The MAC quarterbacks are kind of taking over the league.
Well, Ben's in for a bunch of bruises this year.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. Any other questions?
What about Willie Parker?
Willie, I'll tell you, Willie is a real nice kid. He's a good kid, fun-loving guy. He came really out of nowhere, and he kind of got in the habit of referring to himself in the third person. He would always say, Willie Parker never got a chance at North Carolina State, but Willie Parker likes being with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So a lot of reporters started teaching him about it, saying, hey Willie, what do you think of Willie Parker? Stuff like this. But he kind of laughed it off, and he got a chuckle out of it. And he realized, and he learned from it, that but he's come a long way too. There was a lot of criticism of the coaches, his college coaches are getting criticism now because they're saying, how can you keep this guy on the bench? Once he gets a hole, like he showed in the Super Bowl, 75 yards later, he's still trying to get to him. Yes.
What happened to Lendell Wade? I thought they were really interested in.
Well, you know what they were, and the Steelers kind of confirmed. We were talking to Coach Cowher and Kevin Colbert after the draft, or after the first round pick for us, and they pretty much confirmed that if this trade hadn't come through, if they were not able to move up to 25, they were sitting at 32. He was the guy. If in fact Santonio Holmes gets drafted before their term, he was the guy they were looking to draft. They liked him a good bit. But then, I think it was a 7th round pick. Yeah, Cedric Humes from Virginia Tech. He's a similarly built player, and they liked him a lot. That was kind of their plan. If they were not able to get Lendell White, there were a few other big backs, quote unquote big backs. And this guy's 6'1", 233. That's a pretty good size boy. Well, there was him, and there was a guy named Dearius Howard. He was from Arkansas. He's about the same size, only maybe a little bit taller, maybe 6'1", 6'2", about 240. That they were looking at him too. Now, apparently, I think this Cedric Humes, with Virginia Tech, I think he had a little more experience in college, and he was a little bit more of a polished, finished product coming in. And, just from talking to Coach Cowher and to Kevin Colbert and to running backs coach Dick Hope, everyone was saying, well, is this new running back, is he good enough in case Deuce Staley gets hurt, or, if anything happens to Deuce, is this guy going to be the guy? This Cedric Humes, the guy who comes in, and he said, don't forget about Ron Haynes. That guy, he's like sneaky fast, and he's a big enough kid too. Yeah, he's kind of entrenched now as their third down back, Ron Haynes is, but toward the end of the season, the end of the regular season, even some of the playoff games, later in the games, they would turn to Ron to bring Jerome out of the game and give Ron Haynes some of the carries, and he put it himself very well. I thought he did pretty well. Any other questions?
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but were you on the field during the Super Bowl, or were you?
I was in the press box.
You're in the press box? Okay.
Yes.
I'll ask from that perspective then. What was the buzz up in there about the officiating during the Super Bowl in the press box? All those unbiased writers and everything.
Yeah. Well, we had monitors, TV monitors all around us. We saw all the replays. The one call that's coming to my mind right now is the pass interference in the end, the offense,
Right.
push off in the end zone. And they said, some of the guys were saying, he barely touched him, this and that. And I said, it doesn't say in the rule book, it's okay if you just barely touch him. If you touch him, it's a penalty. The thing that disappointed me about all that was Mike Holmgren, and the way he reacted, like right after the fact, I can understand being a little frustrated, a little bit upset. And even when you go back home and you have the rally there with the Seahawks fans and all that, make a few comments there, I really didn't have much of a problem with that, but he kept going and going and going. It's like, come on, get over it. Sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you, and the only thing they'll remember 10 years from now is they won't remember the officiating, they'll just remember the final score, and they might remember it was Seattle. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Was there any truth to the rumor that the Steelers were trying to make a deal for TJ Banquet?
Yes. Yeah, they, that made it through our little office there at their training facility on the south side. I think it was they had offered a 5th round pick to Atlanta for running back TJ Duckett, who's one of the bigger guys. And Atlanta wanted a 3rd round pick next year. And the Steelers just said, nah, that's okay. They're not one of those teams that gets rid of next year's draft picks. They're more concerned with getting guys this year. And after the draft was over, first Dick Hope was asked about it, and he kind of had a funny. He was in there talking about Cedric Humes, and he was asked about he said about any chance of getting any veteran big backs in here for next year, and he kind of smiled. He says, I know where you're going with that, but he said they don't pay me enough money to answer those kind of questions. He left it alone, but he kind of at the same time confirmed that there was some interest there. And we asked Bill Cowher about it, and he was asked specifically, any chance of another big back coming to town? And he said, yeah, there is a chance of another big back coming to town. It's Cedric Humes. We just drafted him. He said, no, how about a veteran big back? He said, no, we got Cedric Humes. So he's just kind of saying in his own way that no, there's nothing worth writing about or talking about now, because it did come, but it didn't. I mean, it was a possibility. Discussions, but it died right there. I don't think they're going to make any moves now. Anything else? Yes.
What's your observation on the size of the players over the last 25 years? From when 250 pounds was a pretty big man.
Yeah.
Now, just on the draft board the other day, I saw something 370 pounds.
Yeah, it's kind of, the size really has gone through the roof. I mean, it used to be, back in the 70s when the Steelers were playing it, they may not have had any 300 pounders on the line. They had some big boys, don't get me wrong. They were pretty big, they could hold their own. But now, if you're not 300 pounds, it's like not even, you don't get a look as an offensive lineman. And it's kind of ironic because there were comments made among myself and the other writers after Saturday's first 3 rounds. The Steelers came away with 3 players, none of them was over 200 pounds. They ended up with, let me see, I got the numbers here. Yep, Santonio Holmes is 189, Anthony Smith 192, Willie Reed is 186. Of course, they made up for it the next round. They got a 315 pounder and a 302 pounder.
Steroids.
Yeah,
Oh, it's like Lambert, that's what it is.
I'll tell you what, he was a rare breed, Lambert. Yeah. Any other questions?
We've all heard the story of Ben Roethlisberger having the initials, the PFJ, playing for Jesus.
Play for Jesus?
I know you take it off, but he says it's somewhere, can you confirm that he's still wearing it somewhere?
I can confirm that he says that. Yeah, I don't know, yeah, he must have it underneath. You know, the uniforms, it's kind of a strange issue, I think, with the NFL. They have, you remember Edmund Nelson as a player, you can probably see him on TV, he does some news reporting for some of the stations. He has a job, it's like a full-time, well, I don't know about a full-time job. He has a job through the league. And we jokingly refer to him as the uniform police, because it's his job to go out and inspect the players pre-game on the field to make sure their socks come up to the right height, their pants come down to the right height. If they're wearing a bandana or a skull cap or anything on their head, it has to be a team issue logo. You can't be, some do-rag or whatever you had that was just, cleaned out of your dirty duffel bag or anything. It has to be a league issue or a team issue apparel. And that's the way it is. L.C. Greenwood, remember he wore the gold shoes? He paid a fine every week. Every game, he paid a fine. Wear gold shoes. I mean, this is the way it was, man. After he played some of it, he liked them, he was playing well, he's not going to change colors. He just as soon pay the fine and be done with it. But that's how it's, a lot of people think it's Picayune. I mean, it's like, gosh, other than how long a sleeve a guy has on his, but, they want everyone, I mean, it kind of gets back to the team unity thing and it's us, not we. It's us, not me.
They considered limiting the size of the players by, just considering the use of steroids and how much their proliferation is in all these leagues, by making a limit on weight and size wouldn't that kind of help curb that?
It would.
They
It
talk
would help.
about that?
But the NFL has one of the most stringent and effective steroid testing policies in all of pro sports already. Now I'm not going to say that there's no one in the NFL doing steroids. I'm sure that would be wrong. There are guys, and for every drug test that they can come up with, there are going to be 15 ways to cheat, to get around, to circumvent the rule. But their drug testing policy is very effective. They test both for steroids and other performance-enhancing drugs. They test for recreational drugs. There are guys suspended every year, and that doesn't mean they're catching everybody. It just means that I think they're doing a very conscientious job of policing as best they can. It has been brought up, your suggestion that they have weight limits based on position.
Right, yeah.
Probably for 80% of the circumstances that would work. But, there were a couple of guys in this particular draft, offensive linemen were like 6'8", 6'9". And how can you say, if that guy is 6'9", maybe he can carry 340 pounds better than a, 6'3" guy. But, that's the only sticking point I would have with that is you're going to have exceptions to any rule. And that would be, the Cedric Humes that they drafted in the last round. You never know. He's 6'1", 233. It's not excessively big, but I'm sure he's good around. I mean, you know what I mean? A lot of times too, you can find out by looking at a guy. I mean, Barry Bonds is probably the best example of a guy who went from I don't mean to say skinny, I don't know that he was ever really skinny, but he was a smallish, fast, move around the outfield really fast, to a big hulking guy. That doesn't mean he's guilty of anything. I mean, we all have our speculations and our guesses and all that. But until baseball can either test him publicly, I don't mean to say test him publicly, but test him and release the results publicly and come out with something definitive, it's a hard case to prove. Because there are masking agents developed faster than there are ways to catch people.
Do you know of any of the major Steelers who maybe the contracts end as of next year, so they were drafting for those players?
I know through this season, and I believe through the following season, they're in pretty good shape. Now, I'm sure there are a few. But I know a lot of the guys that they re-signed, well, for example, they just re-signed the going back a few too many years. Jeff Harding and the backup center, Chuck Iacobi, redid their contracts. So they have at least 2 more years. I know that Ben Roethlisberger is in the 3rd year. He's a rookie. His rookie contract is a 5-year deal. I would say after this year he'll have 2 years left. I think with the guy who's been to the playoffs both years as a starter and won a Super Bowl and lost an AFC Championship game, they're going to try to redo him pretty quick. Just to get don't let that guy get away. Now Deuce Staley, I think he came here on a 2 or 3 year contract, so he may be in his last year. Deuce Staley, but Paul Wallo they're still on their rookie contracts. So, no, they may be doing, see, a lot of the bigger name guys, like Paul Wallo is in that class now, and then, Ike Taylor, and all the guys who are established, they'll try to redo their contract with at least 1 and preferably 2 years remaining on their original contract, so that they don't, you kind of want to give them the idea that, hey, you're really wanted here, we really like having you, we want you to stay here. And at the same time, they're probably getting them at least a little bit cheaper than if they were to wait and let them go on the free agent market, you know, where they're competing against other teams. So I think that'll help them out. Most of their core players, as they like to call them, are under contract for this year, coming up in the following year. I believe James Ferrier is in that boat. He has 2 years. Yes.
Yeah, are there any limits as far as how many players that can test for steroids at a time? Or can they come in and do a whole team? Or can they do it like a week at a time?
The best way to answer that is to tell you that, well, first of all, every prospect who went to the scouting combine in Indianapolis had a drug test. And that's one of the things that White had. There were reports that came out on draft day that he had a positive test. And I don't know for what substance it came out, what it was. I know in training camp, I would say by the end of training camp, anyone who's still there will have been tested. And beyond that, any positive test, the first time you test positive or you're kind of caught using steroids or even recreational drugs, it's more than, I don't mean to say it's a slap on the wrist, but they kind of, they don't want to unnecessarily penalize you or the team. So what they do is, it's not really a grace period, but the only real punishment is scheduled testing. And when I say scheduled, it's not like you know when every test is going to be, you can prepare for it. I mean scheduled in the sense that you don't go more than a couple or 3 weeks without a test. You know, by the time, you don't have enough time to get anything bad that you put in your system out of your system because you're on drug test coming up. And so they really make it hard. A lot of times they say a guy who fails a drug test a second time is kind of trying for help because you really have to be kind of yeah, if it doesn't sink in, then you're kind of asking for begging for help. But yeah, about the end of training camp, everyone will have been tested, and any positive test after that is regular business. And throughout the season too, there are totally random sporadic. You know, they can just come up to you at any given time and say, here's the little ball, go do what you do. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, what's Troy Colorado look like?
You know what, Troy is, he is the ultimate California free spirit, I'll tell you. That guy is, it's funny, when you watch him play football, and you see how wild and crazy he looks with his hair flowing out the back, he just, you know, it's just amazing. And then when you go up to him in the locker room, and try to talk to him, try to get him to say, oh, that was a great hit you put on this guy, you know, what was your view of that? Like, oh, gee, I didn't really mean to hurt him, you know. It's really, you know, he's a religious man. He's very religious about it. He just does it for a living, I guess, you know. But he's good at it.
Just thinking about cutting
Perfect. Cutting his hair. Well, you know what? That is part of his heritage. He's Samoan, and if you remember a couple other players from the Steelers, Chris Mafala, he had the same sort of a hairstyle. And I don't think he will. Let's hope he doesn't know.
Last year, Steelers signed Phil Braxton, Collinsville kid, played in Collinsville as a free agent, and they hired him for training camp. What's up with that?
Trying to remember. There was something else that happened.
I mean, I heard rumors something down in West Virginia, but I didn't know if there was anything to that.
No, I think, they brought him in, and I think what they decided was, before you go to training camp, they have coaching sessions and mini camps and this and that. He actually, from now, it's starting to come back to me, he didn't show enough to them in the coaching sessions and the work that they did down on the south side before they went to Latrobe to really merit coming with them to camp. I'm trying to remember too, there was a personnel move they made. I can't remember who it was, but they did bring in someone kind of to take his place on the roster, someone that they like better than they had been.
I remember they signed
Cut from,
somebody.
yeah, they signed someone who was cut from another team, similar to what happened to Phil. Or it may have been someone that they were bringing back who had been there before, or it wasn't Lee Mays, I know. It's not going to come to me either. There was another player involved. That's what happened with that. Any other questions? Yes.
Randall, what did the Steelers feel about him leaving?
You know, they didn't want to see him leave, but, you know, he was kind of one of those players that, as much as he showed this year, that yes, like he could play in this league, and he could do a lot of things to help a team win a lot of games, you kind of knew, you had a sense that, boy, somebody's going to lay a big contract on this guy. And wouldn't you know, to be Danny Snyder down in Washington, I mean, you know, they would have welcomed him back, but not for that much. You know, I think whenever he signed, they were kind of like, you know, thanks for the time you spent with us, Antoine. It was great having you. Enjoy your rest of your career wherever you go. He will always be a special part of the Steelers family because he helped them win that Super Bowl. But, you know, that's another thing I give the Rookies a lot of credit for. They don't break their own financial rules, if you know what I mean. I mean, they have their priorities set, and they know what, at least to them, a certain player at a certain position is worth. Anything more than that, sorry, you know. And that's part of the business end of it. It sounds kind of cold and calculated, but been pretty successful for him so far. Chris Hope was another one that, you know, they didn't want to lose, but you kind of had a feeling that his time had come and gone here in his case, where he even said, I talked to him right toward the end of the regular season before the playoff run started, and the whole gist of the story from his perspective was, you know, I'm really kind of a strong safety being forced to play free safety. And, you know, in Pittsburgh, I mean, that's fine. You know, he wants to be a hitter, but his nickname was the man, I think, or the Hammer. That was it, Chris the Hammer Hope. He's a big hitter. He's playing free safety. Well, in Pittsburgh, Troy Coleman always plays strong safety. And I don't care how much you talk about being a big hitter, you're not going to put him in free safety, you know. So, their personnel moves come up every year, and you know, it was sad. They didn't want to lose Antoine, I guarantee you that. And that actually helped them decide what to do in the draft. Remember, they saw Santonio Holmes falling a little bit. Once there were a few key picks there. Once Denver traded up for a quarterback, because Denver was a team thought to be looking at a wide receiver in the early part of the draft. Once they came up and picked a quarterback, and then there were a few picks, I believe, at 20 and 21 or 19 and 20, I can't remember exactly. Once the 20th pick was made, then the Steelers said, okay, we feel pretty safe. They went and made the arrangements for the trade. They waited till after the 24th pick. And then if you remember, the Giants, with whom they traded, the Giants were on the clock for probably 10 or 15 minutes while they were on the phone with the Steelers finalizing the details of the trade. And then they made the trade and made their pick. But if Antoine Randall had still been here, I don't think they'd have been looking for a wide receiver in the draft. Any other questions? Thanks again, guys.
What business?
Hey, Mike.
All in favor of the business meeting being over, say aye. What business do you have?
Minutes from the last meeting, treasurer's report.
I now accept president.
Thank you.
Jerry? Jerry's not here. He ran away with the treasure.
All of the drawing.
Well, we don't have the money, so. Okay. Better door prizes, so where's the basket full of,
Over there by the plant.
okay, guys, okay. We got 2 sets of buyer tickets with parking pass, Friday, May 26th, Sunday, May 28th. We got some pictures here. Steeler Tommy Maddox.
Yeah.
Former Steeler Amos Zaraway. Steeler Ron Haynes. Our speaker last year, Steve Corson. For you hockey fans, Sean McEachran from the used to play for the Penguins. Pirates, we have Jim Bibby. John Candelaria. You have a problem with those?
They had a good team.
Yeah, well, they had a good team. I got a bad, okay, Ryan Vogelsong, you want somebody that stinks. Mike Easler. Elroy Face. Real old school Bob Oldest, 1960 Pirates. Kent DeColvey. Frank Thomas. Current manager Jim Tracy, love him or hate him. And Bill Vernon. Where's our speaker?
He's got a deadline.
Pick one out, Chuck.
Oh, thanks,
Last 3 numbers, 438. 438. There you go. Thanks, Chuck. 489. 489. All right. 454. 454.
What do you want, Jack? You know,
346. 346. Four seven nine. 479. Four one three. 413. 413. Four one two.
I don't think anybody has that one. This is a strip that didn't get picked up.
Strip that didn't get picked up, how'd that happen?
We ripped off more than people took tickets.
I'll pick one for next year.
Dan gets to keep that one. I get to keep one.
All right, we'll pick another one. 513, same thing.
Yep.
How about 352?
That's good.
352.
Yeah. Two of them.
Told you should get it. I don't care if fire anyway.
474. 474.
Takes time.
510. 510.
Matt, it's on the script.
Back to script
Three
again.
of them. That's a good
You were saying they were yours. 432. 432. 432.
He was reading it upside down.
From the peanut gallery back there.
Couldn't see either.
494. 494. 358. 358. 358. All right, Mark. Four two nine. 429.
That's because I sit on the rock.
353. 353. 353.
I was reading single.
353. Would you 2 meals? Four 460.
Nothing even close, huh? It was 406. 406 to 410. Your dad's got like 502. I don't know how I get one out in the field.
503. We had them ripped out because they're probably carrying them on.
516, is that bad chicken? 516?
Yep.
Three of them.
That's 4 of them.
Oh, it's 4.
441. 441. 441.
That is really one I think I'll do that.
Come on. Last one, which is Jim Bibby, who I understand is not in very good health. 463. That's you. Very good, George.
I think so. I had 4 of them. Yeah, I have a framed picture in my office of,
I got a framed picture of something by a car driver.
take your hat off.
Huh?
Take your hat off.
Oh, what are you doing?
Again, Father, we thank you for your rich blessings in our lives. We pray that you give us safety to our homes, make us a blessing to others this week. In Jesus' name. Amen. Got it, thank you.